Hey friends, thanks a lot for joining me today on DIY Pioneer Guy. As we talked about it before, I was going to work on crown molding, and lo and behold, as you can see here, no crown molding, but before you know it, voila! New molding, as well as changing the shirt and some of my surroundings.
In this section, you can see what the previous crown molding in the living room looks like to give you an idea.
So in order to be able to do this, one of the key components that needs to take place is you need to draw out what you're going to be doing. Now this is not drawn to scale, but as you can see here, all my measurements are here, and it gives me my totals required. Another point to bring up is it's okay to measure in, so in this one is a total of 196 inches, but I actually had to break it down to 166 inches plus the 30 because the refrigerator was in the way and other things were in the way. So it's okay to do that as long as you come up with a total, and that's a-okay. Just make sure that you're able to get your totals. Line in place now makes it a lot easier for me to get the exact measurements that I need.
In this shot here, you can see what the kitchen crown molding looks like before we put up the crown molding. As I pan throughout, you can see it gets dark when I get next to the bright window, but you get an idea of what the entire kitchen looks like. We're looking at inside corners, outside corners, everything all the way around without the crown molding. This will give you a better idea, so that way when you see the finished product, you'll see what it looks like once we finish up the crown molding. Thanks for watching.
All right, so we know that it has to be 32 5/8 based on the measurement we did using that line, and so we're at 32 5/8. And I'm actually going to draw it out for the first one. And keep in mind, the measurement has to be on the inside, not the outside. I'll show you guys what I mean. I'm going to share with you guys a mistake that almost occurred. So we measured the inside's 32 5/8. So 32 5/8 all the way down to here, 32 5/8, which is great. But here's the problem. This needs to be out here. So even though the inside measurement was 32 5/8, I have to make sure that this is coming out here, and that's why I like to draw it out so I can visualize it. And so because of that, I was able to see, all right, this cut's not going to be correct. I need to adjust. So I'll show you guys how I do so. I'm all the way to the outside. At my 45-degree angle, I'm able to track it back. And now from this point on, I will measure 32 5/8 from here, moving down. So this line will get crossed out and we'll move over to compensate. So you can see how much of a difference that made. So we had to cut that portion off. We had to slide it out that same direction. And here we are. We're still at 32 5/8 on the inside. So my inside is the one that's going to go against the wall. This grooved section is my outside. So that's what I meant by 32 5/8 on the inside. So as I draw it out, it gives me a better idea, and I make sure that I'm going to have exactly what I need. We're going to follow the same format throughout the entire remainder of the project. Okay, at this point, the door's open, so I won't be breathing in any of the stuff that I cut, and I'm going to put on my ear protection. So we've got the ear protection, we line it up, we make sure that it's exactly the way we want it to be. We look at the teeth, and we make sure that the teeth are going to follow the line. So again, I look at it, I confirm the teeth are exactly where I want them to be, and it's going to be following the cut I want. Tip, my friends, when you are carrying a long piece of molding, especially if it's a material that's a little bit flimsier, instead of lifting it up this way and carrying it where it forms a belly and can snap, turn it sideways. It's a lot stronger that way and can withstand the weight. If you're dealing with wood, you usually don't have to worry about it. This particular instance, I actually used MDF. I usually use wood. It's a lot more sturdy. I like it more. I like working with wood, but in this example, I just wanted to vary it up and try something that I hadn't before. I tried MDF on smaller projects, not a big long one, but again, that's a pro tip. Carrying it this way, it won't break on you. The other way, where the belly forms, if there's a lot of weight hanging, that probability exists. Also, sometimes when you're putting it on your chop saw, compound miter saw, the angle may not be exactly what you need it to be, and so I go ahead and I draw my exact 45-degree angles using my quick square. And that way, when I go on my saw, I make sure that it matches up perfectly, so that way my two 45s will come together according to what I know to be an angle that I want, instead of maybe potentially having adjusted the compound on my saw. Or sorry, the angle on my saw. Okay, pro tip to share. I know my measurement's going to be from here on, So what I did is I actually went ahead and I used my my quick square here to draw in my angle that I needed, and that way my measurement will be from this point on, and I can already account for my waist. Our cut piece. Okay, so we have our cut piece here. This is the part that's going to go on the ceiling. So I'm actually going to attach it on the ceiling. But just as a reminder, there's the ceiling and the wall, and there is a space or a gap that we're leaving in between, so it'll match up perfectly with our other section that goes in between. And so I'm actually going to use this thickness. It's going to go right here. You can see the same thickness. So I'm going to line this up against our wall and then put the ceiling piece in. I'm going to fix this to the ceiling right where we want, and that way we can continue on with our next dimensions and get the right length required. But again, we're going to be putting the spacer in, and I'll show you how I do that. You can see here I slid this piece in, and this is giving me the gap that I needed. Let me look what I'm seeing. This is giving me the gap that I needed between the wall and over. I put in the first nail to kind of secure it in place, and I adjusted it down the line over here. Hopefully you can see my angle's a little difficult to get to from over here. There we go, and that's the same gap there, and secured it in place.
So this is the first piece that it's up. Wanted to show you what it looks like on the wall. As you can see, we have to just do the remainder of it.
As we do this, what you're really looking for is a real clean finish towards the outside here. This section will actually be covered up with the bottom pieces. This can actually be filled in with a little bit of caulking. It seems like much, but that won't be as visible. And there was my spacer, which I actually slid along the way to keep my spacing. So that was the last piece I was showing you, and I want to show you over here. I drew this section where my spacer is going to be on that end, where my spacer was on this end, and I also drew the line where it would match up, just to help keep things clear. All right, that corner's in. This corner ended flat, so the next cut's going to be flat with an angle meet. Now we're dealing with the one that's actually going to sit on the wall itself, not the ceiling. So it'll still be cut at a 45-degree angle, only instead of making our cut like we were before, coming this way at a 45 or that way at a 45, we're actually cutting it from the top here at a 45. You can see the scribbled section is going to be our waist, and so because of that, that's going to be the section we cut. This is an inside cut. The two edges come together right there on the inside, whereas this is an outside cut. It comes facing towards the outside, and I'll show you how I'm going to address both. Things I want to address with you right off the gate. So, assuming this is our wall, this is our ceiling, the cut we're going to have to make is going to come at a 90-degree angle to this. What do I mean by that? So this is my bottom. It's a little harder to do with one hand. So this is my bottom. This top portion, there we go. When we bring it together, comes off at a 90-degree angle to my wall. Hopefully you guys can see that. That angle is the same angle that I'm going to have to duplicate while using my compound miter saw. There's a couple different ways to go about doing so. Luckily I have a template to kind of follow. But before you do that, you make sure that you're at a true 45. So I have my my speed square here, and I'm lining it up, making sure as I look at this, hopefully from your angle you can see it, it actually lines up really smooth. I'm flat against the back side, my fence if you will, and this side lines up beautifully. And then as I slide it forward, I don't know if you can see, my angle might be a little bit off. If I was right above it, you could see it a little better. But from my vantage point, when I'm looking at it, it's completely straight lined, and it matches perfectly with the line from before. So I know I'm at a 45-degree angle. The other thing is, since I'm going to be cutting my the wood that I'm going to be cutting, if you don't have a template made that's at the angle you need, then you need to adjust it so that you will be at a 45-degree angle here. So I'm not laying it flat. It's already at a 45-degree angle. So when I lay this, if you don't have a nice fence to use, then build yourself a fence like this, a 90-degree angle for your fence, which is what I did in the past. So I was able to use this as my template to have it lined up perfectly and then do it. So in essence, I'm allowing it to be, the wood is at a 45-degree angle this way and a 45-degree angle that way, and that complies with my wall, which is at two different angles, a 45-degree angle for the wood as well as the cut that I'm making. Hope that makes sense. That I drew for myself, or that I drew, sorry. This is a template that I built up for myself. It's basically just a 2x4, and I have my different sections put together showing me exactly what it's going to look like when it's on the wall. And this goes up there, and so sometimes it throws you off whack, but if you can kind of look at this, it kind of really does help put it into perspective and in place. So I would recommend giving yourself a mock-up. So where this is particularly helpful is when it comes to odd corners, putting it together and making sure it's going to look exactly the way you want it to. At times it's hard to visualize, and you need something like this to kind of really bring it together. Hopefully that's helpful. Okay, another tip or piece of advice, and I don't know if I mentioned this to you, depending on which side you're cutting will help determine if you're facing it on the left side of your miter saw, this is actually my left, or on the right side of the miter saw. As you can see, these are both at a 45-degree angle, but one's coming from this way and one's coming from the other. Now when you line these two up, these two are gonna make there we go, it's hard for me to hold them. But these two are going to make the cut you want at the right direction, right? But again, one is from one side of your saw over here, and the other one from the other. Okay, so here you have the beginning of the end. So the three-step process. You can see it's coming together right there. The angle's spot on, it's coming across, and it's going to be matched up over on that end. This end will actually be a flat cut on that end. This will be a flat cut that'll meet in the opposite corner with an inside cut. Each step process is visible right here. Step 1 for me on the ceiling. Step 2, ceiling and wall. And step 3, ceiling, wall, and 45-degree angle. Okay friends, so a little bit of information here. I'm actually going to be filling in my holes and my little gaps using this wood filler, and it'll actually go on pink, then dry white. It's also easy to clean up using water, and it will actually dry hard and smooth finish. Finished putting up the molding all the way across. The crown molding, as you can see now, what we have to do is you're going to be filling in the holes that we made with the wood filler. As you can see there, those are examples of spots where I've been filling them in. Otherwise, they look more like, hopefully you can see that, just little holes. But after we fill them in, they're going to look more like that, and then once we paint it, should be unnoticeable. Alright, wood filler is in. As you can see here, we filled in the spots. Obviously the roughest parts are always going to be the corners. The cuts are not perfect. Gosh, sorry about that glare. But as close as you can get them to perfect, and then fill in the rest with filler. So you can see anytime where you had a cut or gap, two pieces of wood, there's also going to be a big line in the center, and that's why I try to offset the center cut with the top cut and the bottom cut. And I'll show you guys after we painted it. Okay, so now we have the finished painted and initially the initial caulking. I put the clear caulking. I'm still going to put the white caulking up, but as you guys can tell, makes a big difference. Oh, I know I'm blasting through this with the brightness. It makes it kind of hard to see. But I guarantee you it's up there, and it's done. So inside corners, outside corners, everything. There you have it.